Okay, in this video we're going to discuss vertical alignment. And this is a simple form of vertical alignment using the box model and the CSS property vertical align. So I've got a text editor open. I'm going to make a new file, call it vertical alignment HTML. Alright, and we'll create the basic HTML structure quickly using an Atom snippet. You type HTML and hit tab, and it automatically creates the basic HTML document for you. If you're using the Atom editor, that's a nice thing you can do. And so right away we've got most of our HTML document. We need to add a style tag. Right? And again, there's another snippet. You can type style and just press tab, and it automatically adds in that HTML tag for you. All right, so we've got our style tag, and in the body here we need to specify, we'll start with the starting div, and we'll call this the app. So in our style tag we'll create .app. The dot is a CSS selector for class, and app is the class name. So this will select this div down here and apply these CSS rules to this particular HTML element. So background color, we'll call it white, and we'll go ahead and make the body background color kind of off-white. Alright, so let's open that up in a browser. Alright. Oops. Let's see what we got. Nothing to speak of, really. We've got our class app. I got background color white, and here we want an h1 tag, and we're going to say vertical alignment. Alright. Go back, refresh, vertical alignment. Inspect element, and see what we have here in the body. Oh, I misspelled background there, that's why. Background, and you see Atom, the text editor, this is grayed out a little bit darker than an actual CSS property, so it kind of lets you know if you have a mistake there, but it's rather subtle. So there we go. Now there we go. We can see our off-white, slightly gray background, and we have vertical alignment. All right. This H1, we'll give it an ID of page heading. All right, and then page heading. And we learned last time about horizontal alignment, so we could say text align center. All right, so there we go. We got a nice H1 tag, and it is aligned right in the middle, right, like how we like. Okay, so now we're going to look at aligning things vertically. Okay, so underneath this H1 tag, we're going to have a parent div, and I'm just going to call this parent. And inside the parent, we're going to have a child div, and we're going to call that child1, and then child1, and then we'll have some text, and then we'll have another div that we'll call child2. Right. And we'll just get rid of this extra white space. Alright, so all we have is a div that is parent, a child div, and then text, and then another child div. So let's add the CSS selectors up here for those items. Parent, child1, child2. Okay. So one thing we're going to do with vertical alignment, it only really makes sense if you have multiple items on a line. Right, so a div that is display block is the only element on the line. So vertical alignment in that context doesn't make much sense. So what we have to do is we have to change these to display inline block. Okay, and we will give them background colors. So this will be blue, and then we'll give it a width and a height. So we'll say the width is 70px, and the height is 170px. All right, and then child 2, display inline block, and then background color, we'll make that red. We'll give it a width of 100 and a height of 290. Alright, so we'll see what we have. Refresh the page. So I messed up background again, I guess. Background color red. Child 2. Width 100. I have to specify px. I left off the unit, so the units are important. There we go. So here we see we have 3 basic elements here right in a row. We're using inline block, right? And text, as we know, is display inline. So this works for inline elements. If we want to center these inline elements, we can use text align on the parent. Okay, so this parent class, we can say text align center, and that will center all of this. There we go. And we can say color white, background color. We'll make it a darker gray. So that shows up as. All right. So now we can see our div separately from the stuff up above. We've got this dark gray, we've got blue, and we've got red. Now, as you see, the vertical alignment by default, everything aligns to the bottom. Okay, and the way the vertical alignment property works is it has to be specified on the element itself, whereas text align, that is specified on the parent. So there's an important distinction here when we're talking about vertical align versus text align. Text align is on the parent, and vertical align must be specified on all of the elements that you want to vertically align. Okay, so the way it works is imagine a line on each one of these elements, each one of these inline elements. Okay, so vertical align has this line right here, and all of the vertical align lines on each element must line up. So, for example, if I make this this div, this blue div, have a vertical align property in the middle, its alignment is going to have basically an imaginary line right through the middle of it vertically, and that line must line up with each one of these other elements' vertical alignment lines. Okay, so since theirs are on the bottom, right, this middle section is now going to be moved down and aligned to the bottom of these. All right, so let's try that. That is child 1, which is the blue child, and we're going to say vertical align, and I'm going to say middle. Right? So there is an imaginary line here that's now drawn through the middle of my element, vertically, right? And that imaginary line must line up on all of the elements. Wherever that line is drawn on a particular element, all the way through the entire line of text, that line must line up for all of them. So here we've got these default to vertical align bottom or line. So we can take a look at the vertical align property on W3 schools and see what our potential values are. Okay, so baseline, for example, is the default because it has to do with text. So text has a line such that some characters can hang underneath, like the tail of a G or the letter P that goes underneath the baseline. So we don't want to actually align to the very bottom, we just want to align to the baseline of the text. Right? So that's the default value. All right, but there are also top, you have text top, and middle and bottom. So mostly what you'll use is top, middle, and bottom. Okay, and keep in mind this is different than text align. The text align properties are left, center, and right. So it's middle for vertical align, not center. That's a common mistake. All right, so all three of the properties are different for vertical alignment than they are for text alignment. All right, but remember, baseline is the default. So here, if I make this bigger, and I'll add like a character that hangs over the baseline, so we can see this. We'll make a span here, and we'll call this text 1. And I'll put big hello, and the tail of that G should be underneath that baseline. And we'll also go ahead and add the CSS class and make the font size bigger so we can see it a little bit better. Font size 48px. Okay, so here we see it much clearer now. We've got the imaginary line in the middle of this element, and it's aligning to the baseline of the text, and then the default, if there is no text, baseline is the same as bottom, right? So it's aligning to this bottom value of the div. All right. If we want them all to align into the middle, first we'll do the red block. That's the most obvious. So child 2, we're going to have vertical align middle, and we'll refresh. So again, each one of these items has this imaginary vertical alignment line through it, and all of those vertical alignment lines have to line up. So here we see, the text is not exactly vertically centered, right? Because it's centered on its baseline. So we have to change the text as well to be vertically aligned in the middle as well, and then it will slightly bring this down just a little bit. So right in the middle of the text here, it will show up, even with these other imaginary vertical alignment lines. Get that out of there. All right. So we go to our span here, our text 1, and we'll say vertical align middle. All right. So we see it just shifted down just slightly, right? And so now we have a line going through all of these items, and we have vertical alignment. So that's the basic vertical alignment property. Remember, the key distinction is that it's applied to each of the child elements, not on the parent. Text align is applied on the parent. And also each one of the potential values, the most common ones anyway, are top, middle, and bottom. Whereas with text alignment, you have left, center, and right.